So this morning I just woke up to some English restriction list news. So there's a bit of a variety of changes, but in standard they've done no changes. So in the Japanese game, they decided to do Swell and GG restriction, notably, or choice restriction. So you can play one or the other. A lot of people are saying they don't really think it's that effective. So I guess they didn't bother with it in the English game. To be fair, D is pretty well supported to the point that if they just make cards better in the next set, then it doesn't really matter anyway. Then onto V Premium. Intrana basically got banned, which is different to the Japanese version, where they saw no changes for Gear Chronicle. And I know some people question that because obviously Gear Chronicle has been for quite a bit of time now dominating a lot of events, especially in the English game. I don't know so much about the Japanese side. I'm not even sure they even have that many V events there for that matter, but Intrana has basically been like a card that gains a lot of advantage. It can also set up your bind zone, so you're hitting multiple birds with one stone. You also search for the cat as well, which can accelerate into more advantage. You kind of do a lot of heavy hitting. It's like the strongest early game card I think we've ever seen in the game. So possibly, I'm not sure if I can really think of a stronger one than Intrana when it comes to like raw advantage. They do call it the on play +3 after all, but then the +1s are every time the battle ends, so you can actually use this continuously in the following turns, provided your opponent isn't just retiring or forcefully swinging into it over and over until it's finally down, which does make it into a bit of a damage sponge as well at times. But I do think that maybe there's a chance that Steam Maiden gets crippled quite badly now because of this ban, which is probably why they were reluctant about it for a long time, because obviously now there's less Steam Maiden targets in V format, for one thing. Secondly, it is one of the kind of key features of Steam Maidens, I think, as well. So having that kind of early game advantage, which is kind of lost now in V format. Obviously in Premium it's still going to be around, so in Premium they'll still have a very strong grade 2 game. They just can't do the whole, well, we'll get to that soon, but they can't do the whole like force marker spam thing anymore. As for Bermuda Triangle, they've gone for the same thing where they decide to unrestrict Miep, which kind of makes sense because this is a chance to basically bring Melody back and have more usage out there. So it does help the deck as well. Then onto the premium format, we have the ban of Engilsa, just like in the Japanese game. So Engilsa, this card, basically in premium, what you could do is you can ride it, then you basically ride into your Time Leaper, do a bit of pressure, but then at the end of the turn, you get your force marker, which stays on the Vanguard, sorry, on any circle you want, but then you also get your Vanguard changing back to grade 2, which is kind of a bit important because that's how you stay on grade 2, and you have Intrana and all these other cards that can basically help you have strong grade 2 game advantage. You build better defense as well in the deck. So your hand's big, you got good field, and chances are your grade 2 game is way better than your opponent, but you've also got force marker on top of all that. So the only thing that goes wrong is the heal triggers, which you can't use grade 3 heals. You can use Rollock though. But the thing is with grade 3 heals is that people don't play Gear Chronicle usually. They play like maybe one or something, but usually it's mainly the grade 0 heal in a lot of decks. So that's usually the dominant card to use, and it's a 20k shield. So in a way, it's sort of is one of the few cards that helps to still justify playing grade 0 heals, which is kind of a neat thing in of itself because they did kind of kill grade 0 heals quite a bit when they introduced grade 3 heals, instead of maybe making a G-Guard mechanic that works alongside the heals. So that's the thing within Gilsa. It's the fact that you've got all that, and then once your opponent has to then ride up, then they don't get their stride turn until History Collection comes out, which will be the on hits. But then once they get to their turn, they go first strike Schlichma, have 2 force markers because they went first, and let's just say you didn't grade store at all, and they blow you out with Schlichma. So basically they do all that before you even get a stride turn, which is kind of a big deal. So it's more the reason why they I think ban this over like hitting other cards. And to be fair, I mean, when you look at those pie charts that Fuzzy makes and you see in Gilsa instead of Elul, then you know something's going to be wrong, because maybe they just want to push Elul as well, sneakily. Elul is the main boss of the deck after all. And then something that's a bit more interesting. So they didn't actually ban Vanquish for Bronto. To be fair, there were some people questioning that restriction, but then again, people also questioning Spangled as well. But I think for Bronto was more a case of like there's just not like, yeah, it does help the deck push harder, but people weren't really convinced that it was gonna like break the deck or anything enough, or like put be one of the strongest things out of History Collection when Zoras gets errated. So they still went for the Spangled ban. I don't think it has anything to do with that situational loop that people talk about. I really don't. I think it's the GB1 effect, because the History Collection, I mean, it's sort of like opening a can of worms that Zazen and Tempestrphere had, which is that you're flipping your GB1s, but unlike cards like Moark and that grade 3, I can't remember his name, basically they can turn on your GB1, but they've got issues in terms of making your deck more vanilla, very, very clunky normal to play it, right? But then these new cards from History Collection, they are way more playable, and they don't really clash much with your deck. So obviously you're getting Generation Break while your opponent's on grade 2, and usually you can use GB1 G guards anyway at that point in the game after your turn 3, but the thing is that you need 2 heals in hand. Spangled helps you to filter through your deck and draw more cards and replace your Guardians. I get the feeling the reason they went for banning this is because it's GB1, and History Collection obviously is going to make that GB1 very, very easy to use, and they probably just don't want you to have like very easy cycling so quickly into the game. So that's my guess. So now Spangled has no home in the format. Anyway, then other than that, there's another page. So there is another thing that's changed now, which is that the Kutaya got banned. So this is kind of one of those restrictions that we've heard people kind of suggesting for quite a while now, and I think there's just been hesitancy. But now that Bermuda's kind of like become a bit, obviously very dominant in Premium, very highly represented at Worlds as well, they decided to just go for banning it. I mean, I don't think Bermuda is as insane as people say it is, to be honest, but Kutaya, I mean, it can help to slow down some of the more annoying stuff. So, for example, Pearl Sisters. Pearl Sisters is one of those combos people absolutely hate, especially when you get Lupina or Olivia. Or if going to Stride, they have Haltruda and they happen to have built enough hand, which becomes easy with Kutaya actually, because Kutaya does have a plus. But the thing with that combo is obviously you get multiple Pearl Sisters that swing with massive power, double crits, and usually people just get beaten that one turn because you're also refreshing. So even if you use like, I mean, I played Genesis, -2 crit isn't very good against Pearl Sisters because they just bounce and call back with Haltruda. But something like Varatrum has been pretty good against Pearl Sisters. But then I think a lot of other decks, it gets a bit more awkward. Some decks I think do struggle more against it than others, but also can just depend on how you open your hand as well. Because if it's like your opponent high rolling you and you don't see enough heals or PGs, then that kind of hurts. Even if you do see them, you kind of lose a lot of defense, and then you go into your turn, you probably don't win that turn, and then they have their Stride turn, and you've kind of run low on defense cards, which is kind of the effective thing. Like, even if you bait your opponent to dropping heals because of your turn 3 ride, like having a very strong turn 3 ride, it does make it hard for the opponent to then have long-term defense for the rest of the game. So usually it's basically a matter of time until they go down anyway. So that's another thing as well. And one thing that's going to change with Kutaya, I think, is a lot of people have started moving towards draw PGs in their decks, but now I think Kutaya's ban makes it so that draw PGs are going to be more and more cemented, because one of the advantages with Kutaya is that you can search for a normal Perfect Guard and then add to your hand, which is sort of a big reason why I've been playing normal Perfect Guards in my somewhat casual, fun Bermuda deck. But yeah, it's very useful toolboxing. It's a grade 3, by the way, so Kutaya being cut from the deck does kind of technically present some opportunities, which means that you can basically potentially run other ride-up targets, or you can just go for some lower grade units, which kind of helps to fix some of the issues with the deck. Maxime was playing 1 Kutaya in his recent list, so, and some people are starting to move a bit towards that as well, because obviously if you see someone succeed with the deck, you're more likely to try it out. Try what you would have never dared try before, which is playing the 1 Kutaya. I think it's possible people might play 2 copies of Betty, because Betty is kind of similar, and you can actually add triggers, so you can add draw Perfect Guards to your hand as well. And Betty, thing is because you're not playing Kutaya at 2, or rather than at 0, but usually what well, one of the things you can get away with is that you could kind of treat Betty like now the kind of proxy to Kutaya, where if you see Betty, you call it, and you know you're not going to hit a second Betty because you've already placed a Betty on the field. So there is that advantage as well. Well, not advantage, but more like mitigator. So I'm not sure how damaging this hit really is, to be honest. And a lot of games, you're not even going to have Qtani in hand anyway, because things do go wrong in Bermuda. And I mean, it's a one-off deck, or two-off in this card's case. So it's never really been that consistent. Katrina's been banned before, and this is now the first time a card has been unrestricted. Honestly, there's probably quite a handful of things it could do unrestricting with, but for some reason, Katrina's the only one getting unrestricted. So with Bermuda and Steam Maidens now getting hit, I don't think that the decks are dead, but I think, and I do think a lot of people out there will still play them, but the thing is with Katrina is that they've pretty much just given like this deck, which has gotten a lot of support since, they kind of just brought it back stronger than ever. I don't think the deck was too powerful at the time before it got restricted, because I think, to be honest, more and more decks were getting more cards which were effective against it. But I don't know how things are going to play out for the meantime until History Collection comes out. There is a chance Katrina could end up being a very highly represented deck because of this, because nothing else got took away from Neonectar while bringing back Katrina. So we'll just see what happens. Well, we'll just see. It's a Springfest. So Springfest format, at least the worst isn't really that bad. I mean, one deck that might be a bit annoying. It's not like it's spoiling a BCS format where everyone's got like one deck and there's just one or two dominant decks that are pushing hard while everyone else's decks have been hit so much, right? So Springfest is kind of a good opportunity for them to kind of evaluate, I guess, without it being too much of a compromise to player experience, which is obviously much worse than BCS events. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the FiRe rules update. So it goes into effect in 2 weeks, actually. So we're going to have this in the next European BSF. So basically, we just had BSF Germany just the other day, like last weekend, and that was actually the only format in which we'd have this heavy Bermuda Steam Maiden kind of representation. I think there's a chance it could just get knocked down a bit more now because people might have more reason to try the decks. To be honest with you, I would always encourage people to try the decks. I don't usually, like, I've got the Bermuda deck myself, but I chose not to play it on wrong card. That not everyone plays that one, or I don't know if everyone plays this either. But yeah, you know what, let's just use this as an example how true to right. Everyone plays this. So yeah, I've got my Bermuda deck. I don't play it much. I kind of just play it as a casual deck, but you don't really need to enter events with these decks just to have, well, I mean, it's not necessarily that much of a competitive advantage as people might think it is. It's not like an auto win event button. I think it's always worth taking the decks that you kind of feel like you want to try out or play with, rather than feeling like you're forced to play like Bermuda or Steam Maiden, because I don't think like I still beat those decks. I mean, I have a hard time against Steam Maidens, sort of. More like when I beat Steam Maidens, it's more like I feel like it's because I critted them out. But Bermuda, I've got like a lot of games where I feel like I just win normally. It just means that Bermuda didn't really draw the most broken hand. That's kind of it, just like with any other deck. So sometimes meta decks are a bit overhyped in a way, but yeah, that's kind of it for today's video. And until then, I will see you guys later. Bye.